Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the end of the year of 2017. This video may potentially be posted in the first or second day of 2018. Now, if that's the case, all this still applies. Now, we are going over my favorite picks, my top picks for the hardware, which may be PC or just tech related in general, that I've had experience with and also have reviewed this year that I think deserve an honorable mention for the best gear of the year. So the title of this video is as follows: Gear of the Year for JDTechGear. So yes, let's get into the best gear of the year that you should definitely be considering even into the year of 2018, because not all tech goes completely obsolete after a year. Looking at you, Apple. Hey, what's up guys, my name is JD from JDTechGear and welcome back to the channel where we discuss PC passion, tech reviews, unboxings, and setup design. So if you're into that sort of thing, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of the channel. So today we're talking about my top picks of gear. I've got my list. It's very high tech. It's paper and pen. So let's get right into it. These aren't in any particular order. I just kind of went chronologically, but not really. So there's no order to these, but they all deserve an honorable mention. Okay, so the first one is the LG 700 watt mini hi-fi sound system. Now this is a $200 sound system that's available from multiple retailers. Newegg, Best Buy, sometimes on Amazon, depending on if it's in stock or not. Now I made this back on Christmas a year ago, this review, but it still deserves an honorable mention. It's not super high quality, but it gives you 2 satellite speakers, a head unit, Bluetooth capabilities, and also USB capabilities, and also a decent subwoofer. And it sounds pretty good for what it is. I mean, it's only $200. I know you might be thinking, wow, $200. But $200 for a nice sound system like that is really not that bad. And it has a 700 watt RMS power delivery. So I believe it's RMS. I don't think that's peak power, although I could be wrong. Otherwise, it gets really loud without distorting, and the quality is relatively good. And they're not super heavy speakers. They're not really rich in sounding and everything, but they are relatively pretty good for the price, in my opinion. You could spend $200 on one speaker from Kiplish or other products as well that make high-end gear. So for $200, having an all-in-one solution is pretty nice. As far as studio speakers, they could be somewhat substitutional till you find something higher quality, but they do work well. If you're going to use them as PC speakers, they're a little bit large to use as PC speakers because they're like, one of those speakers is like this big. So anyways, $200, I think it's a good deal. Next is the Talatronics Pulse X 14 watt Bluetooth speaker. Now this is usually around $25 to $30 price range, and you might be saying, well, that's just a Bluetooth speaker. Well, yes, but Bluetooth speakers, you know, there's so many of them, it's really hard to find a good one and find reviews that people really like, because there are a lot of people on there that just make a 5-star review on these Bluetooth speakers just because they sounded good. But this one actually delivers bass pretty well, especially having 14 watts of power. Talatronics has been a go-to brand of mine for a while. All the speakers have an incredible battery life. Sometimes I only charge it maybe 2 or 3 times a year, depending on how much I use it. And I don't use it like every day or anything, but a couple times a month I may use it. You know, if I'm washing the car, if I'm just cooking downstairs or something, I'm just having the Bluetooth speaker playing on the occasion. It can last up to a couple months on a single charge, and it sounds great. It's rich, it's full, and it's only $25. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. Next is going to be the Thermaltake Versa C21. Now this is a bit of an older case. It came out in December of last year, and I know tempered glass is the new style of things and everything, but this case didn't follow a lot of the 2017 trends of PC cases, which were ultimately pretty disappointing in my opinion. Just listen to Hardware Canucks or Dimitri. There's no tempered glass, but that's fine. It's acrylic, it's see-through, but there's airflow from every corner of the case, so you don't have to worry about that. It gives you optical drives, but you can remove the optical drive bay inside, and you can make it really nice and wide open for water cooling. There's a decent amount of space in the back for cable management. It's just easy to work with. There's no rubber grommets. There's nice integrated LEDs on the top and bottom, which are RGB, and they have a couple different color animations, and they also have a good array of colors to choose from. It's all around a good looking case in my opinion, and offers a lot of functionality for its price point. I think at about $60 to $65 I think this case is. And yes, the side window panel is acrylic, but it still looks good. It's a decently sized acrylic panel. It's not really hindered by that, but otherwise, I think it's a highly functional case, and for $65, a good looking one as well, and has some integrated RGB, so hey. Next is the Gigabyte AX370 Gaming 5 motherboard. Now this one is on the AM4 platform, as you can probably tell, because it's an X370 board. It overclocks very nicely. It has a pretty beefy VRM. You can find this usually around $190 to $170, depending if it's on sale or not. This is one of the upper tier boards. The only real downside to this board is that at this price, there's no integrated Wi-Fi built into the motherboard, where you would see some other motherboards around this price range have integrated Wi-Fi built into the motherboard. Other than that, it has a very decent VRM. Although I heard from Buildzoid, the Gaming 7 motherboard has probably one of the best VRMs. As you can probably hear, my cat is meowing. So ignore that, please. But anyways, yeah, this thing offers a lot of features, comes with a lot of different accessories, and it's a very well built board. The PCB layers are really nice and thick and sturdy. The PCIe lanes are all metal reinforced. You have integrated RGBs in the DIMM slots. I mean, you've got very good aesthetics all around. But overall, a well-made board, easy to use BIOS, and overclocking is relatively simple. Even with memory that isn't particularly compatible with the AM4 platform, I think it works very nicely and is a reliable board, and it has dual BIOS, so you have one to fall back on in case one of your BIOS gets corrupt. So, I mean, that's an option available even on lower tier Gigabyte boards, but it's still one to always talk about, even despite what kind of tier it is. Okay, next is the Cooler Master Masterbox Lite 5. I reviewed this a couple months ago. I used this for my sister's build. It's about a $50 case, and it's got this full acrylic side window panel, but it's not tempered glass. It looks like tempered glass, but it's not. Now, the main concern with this PC case, along with a lot of others in 2017, is the airflow. It's a little restrictive in the front, but if you're building something that doesn't really have a high thermal output, you can get away with it, and your PC will game just fine. I mean, my sister plays all sorts of games on the PC now. Her PC isn't overheating. It's not kicking up the fan speed really high, so it's not really noisy. It has a 970 in there, and it has a Ryzen 1400. Both don't really get that hot, so it works very well, and the case has a lot of functionality to it for its size and its form factor. It's a little bit smaller than traditional ATX cases. It also has no top ventilation, which is kind of a drawback, but cable management was pretty easy in this case. It has a power supply basement. I think it was good for the money, and it definitely deserves a mention in this list. Next is the Motorspeed K87S. It's a really neat keyboard. There's RGB integration in the base of the keyboard along with the keycaps as well, and it's white, and it just looks absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, the camera and the shutter speed makes it look like it's flickering, but it's not really flickering. It just looks like this soft glow around the keycaps. Everything is really fluid. Some of the wave animations and stuff like that are a little choppy, but some of the other animations are really fluid, and it looks really nice. And I think it's around $50 or so, maybe $50 to $60. The Cooler Master Master Liquid 120. Now, I reached out to Cooler Master and reviewed this a couple months ago and used it in my AM4 platform showdown of coolers, seeing which coolers were really well suited to the AM4 platform with installation and everything. This has a very easy installation with AM4 motherboards. With other motherboards I haven't had experience with, but usually people are trying to find AM4 compatible coolers, so this one suited that very well. You don't even take anything off, you don't take any of the brackets off of the original AM4 board, and you literally just screw on the two clamp attachments onto the water block, and then just put that on there and then screw it down around the little notches that are on the pre-installed brackets that come with the motherboard. So it's really easy to use, and it also works well. It cools well. The tubing is nice. It's nice and sleeved. It has a dual chamber pump, so the noise is insulated and it runs relatively quiet. Those static pressure fans are relatively quiet. And $60 for a 120 millimeter radiator and fan combination gives you 2 static pressure fans, so it's in this push-pull configuration. So it works really nicely, and I think for $60, it's definitely one of the best. And it's also on sale, usually around $40, so it works really nicely. Next is the Inwin 101. I really love this case. It's this one right here that I'm using right now for my Ryzen 1700 build. Completely wide open. Absolutely love it. It's a little compact for me because the ATX board gets a little chopped off at the bottom with the fan placement if you have fans down there, so you won't be able to utilize all the PCIe slots if you need to use all of them, but usually you don't, so that's okay. There's no rubber grommets, but you know, I think it should at this sort of price point at $70. But other than that, there's a lot of room in there and it's absolutely great. I'm sorry if you're hearing noises in the background. Everyone's doing their things. It's New Year's Eve, so yeah. Airflow is actually pretty good in this case, believe it or not. And it pulls the intake from the bottom with approximately 360 millimeters of space on the bottom. You know, cable management was really easy in this. I have a lot of stuff going on this PC, and I have 2 additional RGB strips and also custom sleeved cable extensions, not just regular cables, but extensions. And so there's a lot of extra wires wrapped up in the back, and it does it all well. The tempered glass removal is one of my favorites that I've seen this entire year. You just pull the tabs at the top, unhinge it, bam. And then the rear panel also follows the same sort of tradition. You just unscrew the 2 top thumb screws and then you just pull it and unhinge it. Works great. Absolutely love this case. A great option, but it's one of their budget-oriented cases compared to their other cases in terms of price. So yeah, it works great. Next is the Hirali F300 mouse. Now this is a $17 mouse and it features the Pixart 3325 sensor. It has integrated RGB lighting throughout the mouse and it's fluid. It looks absolutely great, feels absolutely great. It's very functional, highly functional. It's almost equivalent in quality to upper tier mice that may be around like 30, 40, maybe even $50 or $60 mice, believe it or not. I absolutely love this mouse. It's one of the best price to performance mice that I've used all year. I'm really impressed with it. It comes with its own software. It's just overall really great. If there's any drawbacks, there's no adjustable weights, but it weighs almost a little bit over 100 grams. I believe. I think it was like 109. But still, for gaming performance, it was absolutely amazing. And the Pixar 3325 sensor is really good in my opinion. There's a little bit of prediction that people say they've noticed, but personally to me, I haven't. And even if there is, when it may be noticeable, it's really not that bad. It works really good, especially for a $17 mouse. Next is the FSP Windell 4. Now this one is on the same tier as the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. Around that $26 to $32 range, that's where you can find this cooler depending on inventory and if there's sales or not. So based on that, this cooler competes very well. The fan is absolutely fantastic. It's very silent, even at max RPM, which I think is 1500 RPM. It has 3 copper heat pipes, I believe, that make contact with the CPU. I can't remember off the top of my head. Overall, it performed very well alongside my other coolers on the Ryzen 1400. Maybe with higher end chips that have a higher thermal output, it won't give you as much of an overhead performance on overclocking, but it's relatively matched in performance with the Hyper 212 Evo, even a little bit better than the Hyper 212 Evo. And yes, it's been out since 2009, I believe, the Hyper 212 Evo. But still, that's a go-to cooler for a lot of people, even me, and I still love that cooler. But FSP Windell 4 is fantastic in my opinion. The only problem with this cooler was the installation process on the AM4 platform was pretty annoying. I did not like it. But other than that, I think it's worth the money. Next is the Azza Hurricane Lumi RGB fans. I don't know if these are available yet. They said they would be available soon, so I hope they're available soon. They have their own mobile app that lets you control all the RGB lighting functionalities. They look absolutely fantastic, these fans. It's a little bit different from the usual. Yes, it has that ring-shaped design, but they're really thick and wide. So if you're looking at the side profile of your case, which usually people do, you get this nice wide profile of light from the side, and it looks absolutely amazing. These fans are really, really quiet for their RPM. So they competed very well, and they do a good job at cooling. Not as good as the Cooler Master static pressure fans, although those are static pressure fans compared to these. But they look great, and they also have a really nice fan hub that supports up to 6 fans. They have their own RGB controller with a mobile app, and also works with RGB integrated motherboard apps as well. So overall, really good fans, and I think they're $70, and they look very unique from the rest. Next is the Drevo Joyeuse keyboard. Now, I reviewed this recently. This is one of the thinnest profile mechanical keyboards that I've seen, and I believe is on the market. And it's absolutely incredible for a minimalistic slash professional work setting. It's not meant for gaming or anything like that, but if you're using it for productivity use and just daily use in general, it maximizes functionality with its keyboard layout, still included the numpad on the side, because it is meant for a professional work environment. So usually professional work environments usually include data entry and stuff like that, where you're going to be using the numpad. So that comes in really handy, and the fact that they have it all compact on a small little keyboard is absolutely amazing. The switches feel really nice, and overall is a very well built keyboard. The LEDs, or the white LED on the keyboard, looks fluid and fantastic. There's a lot of different options, and the only downside to it is you need Bluetooth. I wish it came with its own USB dongle, so you just plugged it into a USB port and then Shazam, you're done. But it uses Bluetooth, which I think has a little bit more latency than you would be using just a USB dongle. But that's just my personal opinion. Otherwise, fantastic keyboard, pretty good battery life, and I think it's about $70. So overall, a very unique keyboard and a really cool one if you're going for that minimalistic look for your setup or your, work environment. Next is the Anidees Prismatic RGB fans. These were quite a surprise. I mean, they look a little bit cheap on the outside because the frame is just your generic plastic frame on a fan, but the LEDs or the RGBs look really nice. They come from the center. Some of the animations are a little choppy, but some of them look really neat and really cool. It has this cool gradient effect, and these perform the best out of all the fans that I've tested this year as far as the price to performance tier. So for $40, you get 3 of these fans. Unfortunately, they use a proprietary connection like a lot of others do. They have their own little fan hub, and it's also magnetic, so that's really neat. I think all fan hubs should have a magnetic backing, so you don't have to screw it in or use some sort of cheap adhesive. They perform better than static pressure fans on the Cooler Master Master Liquid 120 stock static pressure fan, so that was really surprising. They move a lot of air at a relatively low RPM, I believe 1200 RPM. So for $40, these perform very well, and they look pretty decent in my opinion. They also have little rubber mounting pads on the corners as well. Next are the AMZtronic/iGo RGB fans. Now, I haven't reviewed these. I haven't really found time to review them, but I've used them in so many videos that people probably are well aware of them now, and they're one of the first budget RGB fans that I've seen. AMZtronics, that was the first brand I saw on the Amazon market that offered a triple pack of RGB fans for $40. And they look absolutely amazing. iGo RGB fans were the second manufacturer that showed up on the market when the AMZtronic fans weren't available. They look exactly the same. They perform exactly the same. They have the exact same fan hub, except the AMZtronics one comes with a 6-fan header fan hub, and the iGo one comes with 3 headers on their fan hub. So that doesn't make much sense, but otherwise they're pretty much the same exact fan. So I count them relatively the same. Otherwise, they are one of the best looking fans on the market, and for the price. They don't move the most amount of air that I've seen for budget fans, but they do a relatively good job at cooling and pushing air through your case, and look relatively good and are silent at the same time. So these fans perform well, look good, and I believe are worth the $40. The only unfortunate part is that the fan connections are once again proprietary. What are with these proprietary fan connections? Anyways, moving on, I highly recommend those. Really good bang for your buck. Next is the Acer ET322QK, because who needs names anymore, right? So I just recently reviewed this monitor. It's a 31.5 inch or 32 inch if you want to keep it simple. 4K monitor from Acer, and I bought this for about $380. Some people bought it for like $280. It's on sale for like $450, but the retail price is $500. So that's my judgment on it. It's going to be $500, not necessarily what you get it on sale for. It gives you a bunch of color options to work in and a bunch of different color spaces to work in as well. And you can also save your own profiles and all this other stuff, and it looks relatively good. It has a 4 millisecond response time, which is decent, and it's a V8 panel, and it also has 100% color accuracy on the sRGB color workspace, and it's also got 179 degrees of color accuracy on that viewing angle. So anything outside of that would not be as accurate as it would be looking within that 179 degrees. I highly recommend it for productivity and content creation, not so much for gaming because there is quite a bit of screen tearing for such a large screen. It does come with AMD FreeSync, but I've heard people say it doesn't work that well. I hadn't had the chance to work with AMD FreeSync with this monitor. This thing is built well, and it has a VESA mount on the back, and the stand is adequate. It looks fantastic. Thin borders, matte screen finish. Overall, I think is a very good price, $500 for this caliber of a monitor, especially from Acer. Once again, I don't recommend it for gaming. Although you could use it for gaming, it looks really good when there's not screen tearing. And it depends on the game if there's going to be that much screen tearing or not. But I use it for gaming, and I really don't mind it. There's only a little bit here and there, but to others that may be a lot. Besides that, it's overall a very good monitor for productivity and content creation, and I highly recommend it. Next is the Reeven Ouranos cooler. Now this cooler is a little bit special to me because the color scheme's a little bit different, but the fin design is a low profile design that allows you to have room for your DIMM slots and put any style of RAM that you want to put in there without sacrificing your cooling capability. So it's this very dense tower, and it has a relatively good fan on it as well. This cold wing fan, I believe it's a 140 millimeter fan. The color design is a little bit bold, but overall performed very well, was relatively silent, and it cools very, very well. It gives you good headroom for overclocking, and overall performed very well when compared to the other coolers. Especially since, it's only the Ryzen 1400, and the Ryzen 1400 doesn't produce that much of a thermal output. But other than that, it's about a $55 CPU cooler, but I think it's really unique, and it works very well for what it is. And also that slim profile design on the tower gives you room for your DIMM slots. The AM4 installation was very easy to work with. All the parts were machined very well. Everything was engineered very well and very high in quality. Highly recommend that cooler. Next is the Ryzen 1400. Now, I didn't test a whole bunch of processors this year. I just don't have enough to really draw any sort of comparisons other than by themselves. So I really didn't do anything crazy like that this year. I wish I had, but I just don't really have the resources to do that. Hopefully within the year of 2018 I will be able to, but the Ryzen 1400, I compared it to my 4790K because that's also a quad-core hyper-threaded CPU. Now, the only thing that the 1400 really suffers from, in my opinion, this goes for all the Ryzen processors, is its clock speed. The IPC is pretty good for its clock speed. If you were to adjust the clock speed or underclock the same equivalent Intel processors, their single core performance would be almost on par with their Ryzen counterparts like the 1400, and that's what we saw with the 4790K. I think it's a very capable processor, and I believe it's $160 retail. I highly recommend it for those of you just getting into content creation and also gaming and streaming. Having those extra threads is really nice. But of course, the 4790K is still superior in my opinion, simply due to its clock speed. It increases the IPC and the overall performance of the processor altogether and makes it a very well established processor even to this day, and even compared to the 7700K and so on. But still, Ryzen 1400, highly recommended, as well as the other Ryzen processors. I recommend the 1400, the 1700, and the 1600. And lastly, we have the Raidmax Sigma. This was by far my favorite case of 2017 that I have seen from other channels and that I reviewed. Now, I didn't review a bunch of cases this year, but it was still my favorite, even comparison watching like Hardware Canucks or even Gamers Nexus and seeing their comparative results with other towers and the alike. I think this one works out very nicely. It blends style, airflow, functionality, and overall just a clean aesthetic very nicely. It's all engineered very well. All the thumb screws are really nice. All the little details are very nice and well engineered. Just quality all around. The only downside to this thing is it has no rubber grommets. Otherwise, this thing is near perfect. Full tempered glass window, high quality tempered glass as well. I mean, it has frosted edges. It's relatively thick. I believe it's 5 millimeters thick. And you have plenty of room to work with and good cable management. Overall, a very pleasant experience building in that case and a very good value for its price. So overall, those are my top picks for the gear of the year of 2017. I hope you all found this helpful and enjoyable. Let me know what your favorite picks were from what I reviewed and also from other places that you've seen reviews from. I would have loved to review the Fractal Design R6. That probably would have been a lot of fun to work in that case. But I just don't have those connections yet. I don't know, maybe. I also have to give an honorable mention to the Dark Base 700. I got it right here. I haven't worked with it personally, but I'm going to give it an honorable mention because I watched plenty of reviews on it. It gives you a lot of versatility and brings new things that other cases haven't been able to do in 2017 and makes it one of my favorite case manufacturers alongside Fantex and Fractal and a couple other guys as well. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to the Dark Base 700 that's sitting right here, but a review will be coming soon. I might potentially be doing a build video with this case, depending if I get a high-end enough GPU, because I have an 8600K that I have to use, and I'm not going to pair it with a 1050 Ti and say, hey, this is my build video. I'm just putting a 1050 Ti in there. It just wouldn't make sense just to make a build video around it. So it's got to be a whole entire experience. But yeah, there's going to be a review on that soon, and it's definitely a case to look out for and a review that I think you guys should still watch, even though you've probably seen it before. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next gear of the year.